Hi everyone, my name is Anshin Kelly, for those of you who do not know, and welcome back to Let's Talk About Love. So where we left off is where I was talking about mind and body unity, and or mind and body disunity, and how it is through the unity of the mind and body that within the individual that actually outwardly in the universe the spiritual and physical also become one, and then and somehow and somewhat touched on the fact that within our daily lives we are rather unconscious of this unity that happens, that is happening within us, and then we're going to start to talk about how we can strive to achieve this unity again and root our minds and bodies back into the earth, back into from where the root from where all things come, which is unconditional love. So thank you for listening, and let us begin. So again, we're going to talk about this disharmony that happens, and starting to recognize this disharmony that happens. And there's an exercise that is happening within us, and we're going to talk about speak of an exercise within a book as I mentioned before, called the Chonghua Dang, and he says within the Chonghua Dang to do an exercise. I think he called it 10 count game. And he said, try to count to 10. Close your eyes and try to count to 10 by breathing in. And as you breathe in, you count 1. And when you breathe out, you don't do anything. You count when you breathe in. So you count in, and you count when you breathe in, and you breathe slowly, exhale. And you try not to think of anything else except for counting to 1. If you start thinking about, oh, I'm almost at 2, or what am I going to have for dinner tonight, then you're just thinking of something else. So he said, try to count to 10 in this fashion without thinking of anything else, being completely focused on the activity. And guess what? I tried to do it the first time, and it was unbelievably difficult. And what he says is that you just witnessed this harmony between your mind and your body. How utterly incapable we are of focusing our minds within our bodies. And this comes from the influence and the disruption of the ego or the fallen mind. And we'll also start to talk about the spirit world later, but for now we'll talk about the fallen mind and the ego. So so you can do the activity on your own. You can discover that for yourself. And this is why in his book he talks about meditation, and we'll also later in this series we'll do exercises with meditation and things. But within his book, his practice of mind and body unity is meditation, and his form of meditation that he has developed and what he's understood. And it's been actually quite incredibly, unbelievably helpful to me, and actually saved my life quite a few years ago, and deepened my understanding of achieving mind and body unity centered on the divine, centered on unconditional love. So we have to start to just to be able to even begin to open ourselves up, open our channels back to our original minds, start functioning out of a selfless place, a less noisy place, less reactive place, less needy place. We have to start to just recognize what is happening in our minds and within our minds and within our bodies. And many other teachings have spoke of to learn how to not react, but to respond. Eckhart Tolle talks about observing the mind, being the observer of your mind. Where he even says you can observe your mind, and many times you'll smile at your mind as though you would smile at a child who is throwing a tantrum. And when we start to practice these things more, we'll start to see actually how incredibly immature we are. And so I know that I'm speaking in very blunt terms, but this is not to develop even a defensiveness about it, or as I said before, a hatefulness of ourselves. It is so that we can be liberated. It's so that we can start to learn what it means to really live life in a very profound and deep way, and start fulfilling our life's purpose, and literally manifesting this life's purpose of unconditional love in the world. So this is a very noble and very incredible journey. And I again thank you for tuning in and going on this journey with me. So if we go back to this concept of observing the mind, just to begin by observing us through that 10-count game, or stepping back and becoming the observer of your mind. What is it that's going through your mind? What is it that we are feeling? And even in response or in reaction to the things around us, do we just, as soon as something irritates us, we just go with that irritated feeling and react out of it, or do we recognize what's going on within us, within our inward realm, and have the tools to solicit a better response, to solicit a way of processing and becoming deeper and more malleable people. And the purpose of these videos is to realize or recognize that this harmony, this spiritual practice comes from in our different ways, whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's other things, soliciting from the universe help, lessons, and learning about who we are inwardly, because ultimately our minds and bodies are to be united, centered on this harmony, centered on this peace, centered on this love. So many of my friends and acquaintances have spoken of these knockdown, drag-out prayers that they had with God, with just throughout their whole lives. They just didn't understand or know the meaning of their own life, and they were so desperate to know. So they just sit down and just yell out to the space around them. They didn't know if God was even there. They didn't even know if there was even a greater meaning to life, but they needed to know. And in some way, in some fashion, they would get an answer in some way. Whether it was somebody who walked into their life and introduced it to them, whether it was an actual, as Christians call, Holy Spirit experience of this incredible unconditional love that is actually within us and in the universe, but we are so cut off from. So within our lives, there needs to be this discipline, this vigilance, and we don't want to want to get caught up in, oh, I don't want to be trapped. I want to be free, and understand that we are ultimately actually not free, because when we start observing our minds, when we start delving into what is happening inwardly, we realize that we are not actually in control of ourselves at all. We are not free at all. We are quite controlled by the ego. We're quite controlled by our emotions, by the anger or things that affect us. So, and to realize that through spiritual practice, introducing spiritual practice in our daily life, and applying it in our daily life, applying love, the principles of love in our daily life, is what is going to bring ultimate freedom to us, and ultimate dominion of the self. And the ultimate dominion of the self is true freedom. So, so in the next video, I'd like to start to talk about how we can actually do that, and then moment to moment in our daily life, how we can do that in the spiritual practice, or the spiritual setting, sort of personal setting, and then how that manifests within our life. And so keep watching, and we'll keep talking. Thank you very much.